Reincarnated Martial God. Chapter 1 Prologue. My firstborn came into this world in the midst of war. On the day I returned from the field, after spending a full year recapturing the Far East region, I heard the cries that announced new life. A fragile infant, so delicate it seemed they might break at the lightest touch, looked at me and smiled. The sight brought a wave of emotions, a stark contrast to the battlefield's brutality. This small being, with eyes wide and curious, had no understanding of the world they were born into, a world torn apart by conflict, where each day was a struggle for survival and hope was a precious commodity. I could confidently say that only those who've had a child would be able to understand how I felt at that moment. My first child, my flesh and blood. I would have given him everything and even more, if I could right then and there without a single regret. Danny, it's your papa. Papa. Try it. Danny. Papa.
Oh, dear. Looks like Papa is still too difficult for him.
My wife gave me a shy smile.
It took me exactly 8 months before I heard him say, Mom. Now that I think about it, it's such a shame. You should have been there by my side to share my emotion. They say that saying Mom doesn't take as long as saying Dad.
As if, doesn't take long my foot. Though it was just 8 months, it felt like 8 years. You know? Just then, Papa. My eyes went as wide as they could. My wife's reaction wasn't too different. What did you just say? Say that again. You said Papa just now, didn't you? The baby simply giggled in my direction.
I heard it too.
My wife's voice, laced with a hint of jealousy, pierced my eardrums. At that moment, a giant smile spread across my face without me even knowing. So this is what becoming a father felt like. My emotions were overflowing. So lovely. They say that the joy of raising a kid couldn't be exchanged for anything else in the world. I felt like I could finally understand the feelings of all the other parents. However, against my wishes, I had to leave once again. I hadn't even seen my child for long. The war had not come to an end. That day, had I known the war would drag on for as long as it did, I would have stayed by your side for longer, even if it meant staying up all night for several nights. I found out later that while I was fighting in the war, my wife had died of illness. Forget about my wife's funeral. I couldn't even be by my child's side. For a very long time, the vast continent of Igrant holds a multitude of scattered countries. However, until now, not a single one big enough to be called an empire existed. In the midst of all this, our country succeeded in becoming the only empire on the continent after a long war. What a glorious day. Damn it. 5 whole years. I thought today would be the end of this damn life on the battlefield. But what greeted us when we returned wasn't a warm bed, nor our beloved families. A sharp arrow grazed my cheek. The pungent smell of blood stung my nose. The firmly shut gates of the imperial palace were akin to a death sentence. Perhaps this was an inevitable outcome. My lowly status as a former slave must have been the problem. Even though I've accomplished great feats that everyone acknowledged and become one of only 4 commanders in the empire, that's all it was. Although they pretended to respect me on the surface, the nobles have always ostracized and despised me. The excessively courteous words of the knights who seemed to uphold me were laced with constant belittlement behind my back. The respect and courtesy they showed me were nothing but a pretentious act to maintain their hegemony. I'm sure they didn't want to accept it. The fact that they, nobles from birth, and I, originally a slave, were now standing on the same level. The fact that they had to share those great achievements and glory with someone like me. My mana holes unresponsive. When did I get poisoned? My insides churned. I found myself surrounded by thousands of people. Fearing something like this might happen, I hadn't even put the food at the banquet on my lips. To begin with, my body is impervious to ordinary single-dose poisons. So how did this situation come to be? I hadn't eaten anything since the dinner I had with my subordinates last night. In that instant, I felt my body subconsciously stiffen. This is because the word betrayal had flashed through my mind like lightning. At that moment, I seemed to lock eyes with a masked figure having a familiar build among the crowd. Are you disappointed, Ancelot? As the emperor's voice pierced my eardrums, I tried to regain my composure. Why are you doing this to me? I would have done anything you asked of me. History repeats itself. If I had to give a reason, it would be jealousy. Jealousy? I am the emperor, as well as the one who achieved the feat of establishing the only empire on the continent. However, the people of the world only chant your name. They call you the god of war and the god of martial arts. Does he not care about the aftermath? If he says such things carelessly, he'll lose the loyalty of his subjects. But the emperor had already been going mad for some time. Standing before me now is nothing but an unsightly, crazy old man possessed by jealousy. The madness felt like it was contagious, and I forcibly awakened my mana. My gut felt like it was being ripped apart, but whether I die this way or that way, it all comes down to the same thing anyway. I won't just take it lying down. Stop! As I showed my will to fight through my actions, Western Commander Eisenberg spoke up to dissuade me. With your skills, we would also suffer significant casualties. However, do you think we came here to capture the god of war with only that level of preparation? What do you mean? If you resist, we will kill everyone starting from